All right, we're here for our next training. It's the single-phase UPS. Rob is going to kick this off, and I'm going to pass it over to Rob. And Rob, ball's in your court. Thanks for doing the training.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I'm in the spot that's preventing in between the call and dinner for everybody. So I'll move as quickly as I can. This is the presentation on single-phase UPSs. I believe that a good deal of our folks are going to be familiar with what you're seeing here, so I'll apologize if there's knowledge that you already have. We do have some newer folks on the team that this may be very helpful for, so as we move forward in subsequent presentations, I think we're going to get a little bit more technical on some of the content, but single-phase UPS is a fairly good slug of our business. And certainly the service and maintenance and everything that comes along for the ride with them is important to our business. So again, start off with the line card. This is the centerfold, if you will, kind of consolidated to one page, and this is where we're going to be focusing on today. So UPS, I think most everybody knows it stands for uninterruptible power supply. And really, other than providing a lot of line conditioning and power conditioning, I mean, its job is to provide runtime and emergency power when usually it's a failure on the utility side, the main source of power fails. We offer UPS solutions from pretty much the top best-in-class providers on the market. They're all in our portfolio. And their offerings range from small kind of rack base and small room size single-phase UPSs up into large-scale three-phase, including flywheel. We're going to be focusing on really the kind of the first kind of dash there, the rack base and small room size, and then the first part of the second line there, the mid-size single-phase. Just real quickly, the size of a UPS and how much power it is able to accommodate and support and how long it can support that power is really determined by some components you'll hear in this presentation and in subsequent ones with regards to a power module and a battery module. So we'll get into some more detail about each of those.
Hey, Rob, this is Monty Crocker. I may be getting ahead of you right now, but what would you say our top 5 sales as far as manufacturers are?
Yeah, you're getting ahead. You'll see.
Okay.
You'll see in a second, Monty. You'll see right now. So really in our portfolio, who we have kind of active relationships with, some contractual, we've got 4 really primary UPS providers in our portfolio. Active Power is a very unique, larger UPS with flywheel technology, which is very different and unique and has some really niche capabilities in niche markets, and Kevin Duffy's been real successful with that. Unfortunately, they're not going to be part of today's presentation. More on them on a future. Mitsubishi
right. Rob, could I interject on the Active Power? We are the representative here in Florida and Puerto Rico, but they have a representation and representatives in different parts of the country. So they're not big on conflict. So we'll have to tread lightly on that. How we can sell it in different areas where they have a rep.
Okay.
Hey, Rob. Rob, it sounds like this is a questionnaire time on the slide, but I do want to make a comment on Vertiv. What are your thoughts on the last Candace call that Vertiv said that they're going to present to all their channel partners? It'd be great if we could get that list as a partner, but free shipping and pointing the UPS business over to you-know-who, Annixter. What's your take on that?
I don't know enough about it yet, so I'm not going to comment on it.
Okay, fair enough, I guess.
Mitsubishi has a single-phase UPS, kind of one product family that we will talk about later, but they don't really fit across the board of the breadth within the single-phase UPS, so you will hear me mention them later on, but for the most part, the two providers that really dominate the single-phase UPS offering for us are APC by Schneider and Vertiv, which is the new name of the previous Liebert brand, and Emerson Network Power. So some people who are kind of naive or aren't kind of dabble in the market ask questions like, aren't UPSs generally designed the same and they just come in different sizes? And I do hear that. I do hear people talking about it. We're going to go through the kind of the three main types of, excuse me, UPS designs out there. They're referred to as a topology. So there's three topologies. There's a offline or standby topology. There's something called line interactive, and then there's something called online, or sometimes also referred to as double conversion online. Each of them has its advantages and disadvantages. They're sweet spots in the market and where they're best applied. But when we get into kind of mission critical space, when we're talking about, servers and data centers or IDF or MDF closets, it's really the double conversion online that is equipped to best protect our clients' equipment. So we support all three of these kind of different styles of UPSs with both the APC and Vertiv offering, and we're going to go through each of them now. So the offline or standby UPS, these are basically kind of your battery in a box. There's nothing really kind of sexy about it or how they're configured. Usually it's a smaller size. It's a low voltage unit. It's an extension cord or an outlet strip that's got some runtime associated with a battery. Most of these products also have a surge protected outlet or two, in addition to some of the battery protected outlets. So they're used for home offices and small businesses. They don't work with most of the power problems. You'll see that there's kind of 9 or 10 different types of power problems out there. This thing only protects against one, and you see it down here in the bottom of the screen. It's the outages. These are not used for mission critical devices. So the APC line that fills this role is called backups, and I'm going to share a little bit about what that stuff looks like, and we're going to do this for each of them, but I'm going to go really quickly through it. So the backups UPS, they look like something that'll sit on your desktop, right? It plugs into the wall. It's got the battery built into it. It's got a number of different outlets. This guy's charging his phone on one. He's probably got his router plugged into it, and maybe his desktop PC. They have one with a detachable battery module that you can take with USB ports and charge mobile devices on the fly. That's kind of cool. You also see the different sizes UPSs come in, and this is something very common amongst all the manufacturers. Will provide these types of specifications. You can see the power capacity of these guys. There's not a whole lot. You'll see power represented in every UPS manufacturer in two flavors. One is a VA, which is volts times amps. That's something referred to as apparent power. And then there's a derated amount. So there's an efficiency metric that turns this thing into actually how many watts. And that's the most important feature there, is how many watts of power these things provide power backup for. You'll see the runtime from all these manufacturers and their specs in minutes based on the type of load that's being provided, and you'll see these are the common things you're going to look for and the real important things when we're sizing projects for our customers. The Liebert brand product, let's see, the PST4. So if we look at the Liebert, again, offline UPS technology, they look a little bit differently. Again, it's an input cord with a bunch of outlets surrounding a pack that's got the battery in it. Again, you'll see the VA in watts, physical dimensions, shipping weights, and the types of outlets that are included in these things. Again, very kind of lower end. Some of this stuff may even be blister packed in that you see in retail stores. I'm going to just keep it on this type of slide going forward if you're okay, because it'll make it easier for me to flip back and forth. The next kind of, when we start selling more, we don't sell a whole lot of the offline at all. It's not something really our customers dabble in. But now as we move up into the line interactive, kind of the middle topology, most of this stuff protects about 3 different types of the outages. Some of it do up to 5 different, but so outages, sags, and surges, those are 2 more different types of power problems added on to the outage. So a sag, when the voltage kind of drops intermittently, or a surge is when it spikes. So the UPSs in line interactive technology have the right types of filtering internal to correct for these types of anomalies, so that the output, you don't see any of this on the output, and your gear runs on clean AC power. So it includes surge protection, usually for all of them. Most of it's for now into kind of workstation and smaller networking environments. They are cost effective. You got to watch the apples to apples comparison when you're maybe bidding out a UPS for a particular application and you think your customer comes back and says you're real high. Well, our competitors may be building a line interactive UPS versus kind of the double conversion. Still, both the manufacturers would say these are not mission critical or for mission critical applications, so you got to kind of watch that. A lot of our applications, a lot of our customers, you know, on the direct side and the channel side are kind of quote unquote data center opportunities. So the mission critical aspect comes along for the ride. But at the end of the day, some people are really price conscious, and depending on their application, they may say a line interactive UPS is good enough for them. So what APC refers to on their line interactive side is something called smart ups, and smart ups with an extended runtime. So they sell that product with extra batteries to include longer runtime. On the Vertiv side, they still use the Liebert brand associated with this, so it's called the PSA4, the PSI, and then their extended runtime version of that. So let's look at the APC Smart Ups. Now you're getting to look at some kind of more robust packaging on these units. You'll see some standalone kind of to be shelf mounted on a desk on some type of workstation. It's not a rack mount form factor. They also move up, and they do have units that offer extended runtime. These are rack mounted units, so they'll come with extra batteries. And now you get into some accessory features that aren't included in some of the lower end units. So as you move down here, you'll see like user displays on the units, software that allows you to, via the network connection and a network card in the unit, software that allows you to gracefully shut down and kind of control which outlets go off at any given time. The network cards are different types of accessories. There are different network cards from both APC and Vertiv, excuse me. And then the extended battery packs, which again are just rack-mounted chassis that have the extended batteries. Both Vertiv and APC offer some kind of unique, when you hear of a bypass module or a maintenance bypass panel, this is so the UPS can get serviced while there's no interruption to the load. So if the utility is still up and the UPS needs some type of service, both APC and Vertiv offer these kind of wraparound maintenance bypass, which is really the outlets where your gear is plugged into. And APC offers 3 different flavors here for their smart ups, and you'll see Vertiv has a little bit more in their offering, but both are very similar. So if I go to, let's look at the Vertiv, kind of the lower end on the Vertiv side. These are a different form factor than the APC. These are more of like a kind of a tower module. There's a 500 watt 700 VA and a 1000 watt 1500 VA unit. Again, same types of specs you familiarize yourself with earlier. The capacities rated in VA and watts, dimensions, weights, voltages, how much output is provided, and down here you get, this is the other kind of important things when you're looking to kind of help your customers out, is the types of outlets that are included on the back of these UPSs. So everything we've talked about so far, most of these customers are actually directly plugging in their gear into the UPS to provide power to the gear. As we move up the food chain in a couple of the next slides, and certainly in subsequent presentations, the larger size UPSs, people are generally not plugging gear into a UPS. The next step would be to plug the outlet strip in a cabinet into the UPS, and then from there you're actually running, you're connecting kind of remote power panels, circuit breaker panels, or actually floor-mounted PDUs and data centers into some of the larger UPSs. The extended runtime model from Vertiv, similarly to the APC, you're going to get rack mount features now. You can get the stand that comes with it, so this thing can be a tower module. You can see the extended battery module is kind of a matching type of look to it. So this thing can sit in the stand and be a standalone unit as a tower, or it can be flipped over and rack mounted. The rotatable display is kind of neat on the Vertiv unit, so if it's standing up as a tower, you're still reading it the way you need to see it. And if you flip it over 90 degrees, the panel can rotate. You get all the different call outs for the back of the unit. That's kind of the business end of the unit, where the different types of receptacles are, where the battery module is, where the battery plugs into the main unit. Usually on any extended runtime or anything that's got more batteries in it, the manufacturers will tell you the type of runtime you can expect out of the unit. So in this case, there's 1,000 VA, a 1,500, a 2,200, and a 3,000. It'll tell you the runtime at half load and at full load, so at 50% and 100%. That's what you're looking here. At each of these different models, you can see the runtime with, depending on how many external battery modules. And in this case, in the Vertiv line, you can have up to 6 external batteries in addition to the internal battery. So you can get up to like 131 minutes, 239 minutes, 336 minutes. So again, people are still kind of directly connecting their gear into these units and running them for a little bit longer. You'll see with the larger UPSs, the run times are way down in the minutes or sometimes seconds, because they're really only there until an auxiliary power source, most of the time a generator, comes online to replace the utility, versus running everything off the UPS till it kind of runs out of battery. The highest end kind of single phase UPS offering we have, and now you're going to see these things get both in some of the similar packaging like you've seen, as well as some really nice modular types of offering where you can kind of build these things and scale them in your customer sites as they grow. But this is the highest level of power protection you get. I think, this shows 10. There's really 9, and I think kind of between the under voltages and over voltages, or the noise and the transients, you can kind of combine those two together. But really, these are all the different things that can happen with a sine wave. It can go out, can sag, it can surge, it can spike. You can get a bunch of noise riding on the sine wave. The frequency can change, which is a really bad thing. The voltage can drop, it can increase, or you can get harmonic distortion and makes the sine wave look like kind of peaks instead of kind of rounded. This UPS corrects all of those things. Any double conversion online UPS corrects all of these anomalies, so the sine wave that comes out of the output is nice and clean, and that your gear can run on it. So it's the highest level of power protection. It is the most expensive. I think that kind of comes along for the ride as you increase kind of functionality. And on the Schneider side, the APC line, this is where they have a Smart Ups online, which is their kind of low-end entry-level double conversion. But 9 times out of 10, we're talking about a product line called Symetra with APC. I mentioned earlier on Mitsubishi would reappear during this presentation. Well, here it is. They've got this product, the 7011A. We'll see it. It looks a lot kind of older in its design than the APC and the Vertiv products. And then the Liebert GXT4 and APS, and this is the selfish plug for the Vertiv GXT4 right now in the Q4. They're running a promotion. Sam talks about new logos kind of internally here. If we register and sell a new opportunity to a new customer, we can get special promotional pricing with an approved registration. That'll drop the list price by 20%, and then we still get our registered multiplier off of it. So it really puts you in a good position with a client kind of competitively if we're able to register a new logo on the GXT4 line in Q4 of this year. So if we look at, we're going to jump right to the Symetra line from APC. Now you can see things starting to look a lot differently, right? You've got these things are on kind of levelers and casters so they can move around. They can get sized to put into a cabinet, but you've got chassis now where the batteries and the power are all modular in there, and depending on how many power modules you can put into one of these chassis and how many battery modules you can put into one of these chassis, now you're able to scale these things both in their power capacity as well as their runtime. So the Symetra is a pretty robust unit. They do have external battery modules as well. They have external outlet types of configurations for the backs of these things. You can see kind of what the modules look like. Both manufacturers boast that these types of units, these chassis with the modules, are all hot swappable. It means you don't have to take the UPS down to replace a battery or add or replace a power module to it. I would suggest that it's that we still use an authorized kind of technician or someone that really is in the know about doing this versus kind of the helping hands at your customer. But on the back plane of the Symetra, you can add in these different outlet configurations. So now you can see where I talked about earlier, the next step up would be to kind of put the rack power strips to plug into these versus directly plug in gear. So now you can see kind of, maybe I can blow it up a little bit more. So you can see that the outlets in there are now these twist lock outlets that you learned on the when we talked about the rack power strips in the last presentation. These are all the input, the NEMA twist lock receptacle. So now this is the input cord to a power strip that's going into this. So now you're going to run a whole cabinet's worth of gear, or a couple cabinets worth of gear off of one of these UPSs. Similarly,
they also have what you call a PDU extender, which would, if you were trying to run power from this 16 kVA single-phase UPS, the numerous racks in a computer room, and to get over to another row, the PDU extender can be a big help because, the power cords are typically, 10-foot max on the PDUs.
Yeah, good point. Thanks, Andrew. The lever kind of flavor against kind of the Symetra in that kind of modularity is something called the APS, and you can see here what I'm talking about. Very similar modules for power and battery backups, very scalable. It has a high efficiency rating, so the VA and the actual watts are very close to one another. This is something we're able, just like in the Symetra, we're able to register these projects. We're able to get registered pricing for our customers. We can be pretty darn competitive. You can see that you add in different types of network cards. The Vertiv flavor of network cards are called these IS, and the Unity card is a multi-protocol. It's the most popular network card you can use. They do have network cards associated specifically for their use with their site scan monitoring system. They have a relay module, and they have a multi-port kind of card that's used for their graceful shutdown software. You can see the different size chassis on the APS line for Vertiv, kind of very similar in the theme to what you saw with the Symetra. And again, once we start looking at kind of the specifications, now we're up into kVA, right? We're not talking about VA anymore. Now we're talking about, 1,000 times that. So we've got a 15 kVA, 20 kVA, and a 10 bay. That's how many kind of openings the chassis has. So they got 10 bay, 12 bay, and 16 bay chassis. And depending on how you configure them with the power modules and the battery modules, you can extend the runtime or increase the power capacity of these units. The last piece on the double conversion online, again, I mentioned that, is this Mitsubishi product, and you can see that it's a little bit kind of aged looking as compared to the Schneider or the Vertiv brand. This, however, is still a highly efficient double conversion online UPS that comes in varying capacities, I think from 6 kVA to 12 kVA. So they got a 6, 8, 10, and 12 kVA unit. You will see similar software capabilities for graceful shutdowns and network communications. And again, specifications very much in the similar format. So you're looking at their efficiency ratings may be a little bit less than maybe the Vertiv. On the power factor, you can see how many watts versus how many kVA are coming out of these things. Input cords to these guys are terminal blocks, so these require a hard wire, an electrician to wire the input. And it does provide varying capacities or varying runtimes of or varying runtime, I should just say, period. So that's what the Mitsubishi, I know Dave Kovacs gets involved a lot with Mitsubishi, but really not to the extent. I talked with Dave about this the other day to just make sure I have it all covered, and really our sweet spot with Mitsubishi is their larger three-phase units, and that's really the breadth of their offering. But I wanted to let everybody know that we've got this in our portfolio as well.
Yeah, Rob, as I mentioned, that's basically a dog
that Mitsubishi single phase. So, but it's available. So if you're looking for Mitsubishi, we have it.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
That image alone on their data sheet, with the grill, doesn't even look like it has even holes.
Yeah.
And a 0.7 power factor is, that's definitely very old technology.
I think that's
I just didn't want to hide anything. That's all.
Yeah.
You got a customer that says, I have 10 of these and I love it and I want 10 more. You're going to say, give me your order. So, qualifying, this is kind of the last slide before questions. So hopefully your dinner is still going to be on the table and not in the microwave, like mine will be. Sales rep qualifying questions, really similar to a rack power strip. We got some basic pieces of information we need to acquire, whether your customer is able to acquire it or we're able to ask him for some things that allow us to figure it out for him. So size of the UPS and VA or watts, real kind of obvious on that one. What types of input power is required in voltage and amperage? I mean, phase comes into play, but this presentation's built mostly around single phase, so that would be the answer there. But what types of voltage and amperage? And on the single phase, we're talking mostly about 120 volt input or 208 volt input. How long do you want the UPS to run at full load? So if it's rated at 10 kVA or 8 kilowatts, so when it's providing power at that type of load, like you've got gear that's adds up to 10 kVA, how long do you want that UPS to run on battery to keep that gear up and running at full load? So that's a key determination for us to determine whether we can use the internal battery and it's going to be good enough, or do we need to start kind of including external battery modules and how many. Do you need network monitoring? So the lower end units that rules them out, some of the line interactive products do include the ability to have a network card like you saw, and most all of the double conversion online. That either comes with, like in some of the Liebert offerings, the higher end ones, the higher KVAs, they'll include the network card as part of the SKU now. They'll include the rack mount rails as part of the part number and part of the price. That used to be kind of separate, so they've bundled that together. How many different outlets and what types of outlets might you need? And then form factor, where are you going to put this thing? Is it going to stand on a desk? Is it going to sit on a shelf in the cabinet? Do you want to rack mount it in the cabinet? Do you want to put it in the bottom of the cabinet and have it just reside there? And if they don't have a lot of these answers, some people will have a list of their gear, like make and model number and quantity of the types of servers or networking devices that they're going to want to be on this UPS. And if they provide that to us, that allows us to figure out at least some options to come back to them with. And it allows you to keep the kind of the sale conversation going. Both APC and Vertiv have configuration tools and product selectors that allow us as partners to go on their portals. We talked a little bit earlier about some snafus with the Schneider site now that are hopefully being refined and corrected for us. But both of them have generally some pretty robust support tools for us as partners. I've been a proponent with Vertiv to allow them to give us more configuration kind of freedom with their UPSs, but sometimes as you move up the food chain of complexity and size and phase, it gets a little bit more technical because now it's not just a SKU, it's a configure to order where a UPS could be set up in a myriad of different ways, and they have some experts there to help guide us. Both of these vendors allow us to register projects for these types of UPSs, especially the double conversion online. That's where we get preferential pricing for registered versus non-registered pricing, which kind of limits our ability to be competitive. The admin team here, as well as a good deal of the folks in the field, have logins to these portals, so you've got a variety of different resources that you can lean on internally or externally in the company to help get things moving if you've got a client that you're looking to help configure a UPS. So that kind of sums it up. I tried to move kind of quickly, but not just glaze over any of the real important stuff in respect for people's time. But that kind of concludes the presentation today. So if there